Hi, Michaela. We're gonna take a look at your emphasis project, give you some observations about what we're seeing here. Let me pull that up just very quickly here. I think this is where we are. Here we are. Got lost there for a second. Okay, so in the environment portraits, I'm just basically taking a look at how you've posted, make sure everything is in order. I hope you understand, why we were so particular about organizing these photographs. Being able to navigate them is a really important thing, particularly when you get to the portfolio presentation kind of thing. You want to be able to organize and present your work in a very specific way, and be able to understand instructions when someone or a group is asking for it to be organized in a particular way. So anyway, let's jump right in and take a look at some of these photographs. I'd like to kind of maybe give an overview a little bit. We've talked about the generals about the project itself, but what I'd like to do is speak more specifically about your tendencies, what I'm seeing in general as far as the photographs go compositionally, and that type of thing. So in general, as I have been looking at your imagery, what I'm noticing has to do a lot with leading lines. And leading lines are those things that move the viewer's eye deep into space. Most of what you have been doing here in these first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you're getting into it a little bit here, 8, and then a little bit into it here with 9. 9 out of all of these are incorporating leading lines, which are the converging lines that bring you deep into space of the image, into atmospheric depth. And so what that means is you are guiding a viewer into the image. Where are you guiding them into? That's up to you. That's where you want to point them. There are a few little sort of fine tuning, like this this horizon. We would want that horizon to be at the very least level. One bit of advice is you can get away with it, having the horizon a little bit diagonal like that, is if something else in the photograph is perfectly level. So for instance, if there was like a fence post or something like that that actually was crooked, and you lined up the fence post perfectly and the horizon was not, that you can kind of get away with no problem. But as I'm seeing it here, you've just got the basic diagonal here going. Now, you do have these verticals going straight, but it's not quite enough to counter that sort of horizontal that's leaning. So that's just a tip on how you can counter that. Anytime you're dealing with an angle, you want to kind of introduce a counter angle to it. This is a very nice sort of curvature into the space here. You're really bringing us around and then taking the trees from the top to incorporate that. Whether you knew it or not, whether you knew you were getting into the phi grid here in the placement of the objects or not, that's what you were doing. A lot of times in this first project, I'm seeing things that you guys are doing that you probably don't have a name for, or that you've been doing all along, and then we're going to identify it as a thing. I'm hoping that doesn't sort of distort it for you or change it, so you're self-conscious. I hope it helps to enable you and empower you to know that what you've been doing does actually qualify as a structural kind of thing. It just means that you've been intuitively doing it, automatically, instinctually doing those things, like using something like shadows as a repetition along with the fence post here to bring the eye back into the image that way. It's a very good strategy, and you're just tending to do it. Now, I will point out a little bit over here. I pointed it out in a couple of other photographs from other postings, and that is this sort of corner activity. When we have the frame, when you have a square, And if we were to wipe it away completely, no information on it, just a blank square, like a blank piece of paper, that square, what's most interesting about it, just like that, are the corners, because the corners are where like activity happens. It changes direction, right? It goes, and so when we use that square to compose in, the corners automatically, before we actually engage it, are interesting. So they are less important for us to engage actively. We do need to pay attention to them, but we don't need to, in essence, make them more active. So what happens when we have elements that lead us to the corner? When you have like a line like this, where the tree post is, or the fence post is leading us right to this corner, is we're pointing at something that already is active. So we're activating an active thing, and that gives us too much energy. We don't necessarily need that. If this was pacified, in other words, if the tree, I keep saying tree, if this fence post was more ending right up in here, somewhere around that phi grid number at the bottom end of it, or even maybe the rule of thirds end of it down here, you would lose that energy, which is good, because you wouldn't feel so pulled down into this direction of the image. So that's just a tip that lots of people ran into, or a few people ran into, not, I wouldn't say lots, that can easily be corrected. Now, I'm, the images inside the atrium were quite beautiful. I think a lot of people approach this area in a really good way, because the light during our shooting session happened to be really extraordinary and beautiful at that time, where you have these shadows forming, and you have the direct sunlight hitting parts of the building. You have a lot of things to work with that way. Hopefully that is telling you something about time of day and the quality of light that you can work with and what it can do for you. This is an excellent use of the space where you're sort of moving this. See what I mean about this corner here? You've got this edged down into the corner here, not up here. How much more you're able to move across there. This is a good example. You do have this kind of going down in the corner, so you want to avoid that. So it does get into this like little bit of a movement thing where you're trying to do it, but it's worth it. It takes time to do that, but you tend to, like at the right moment, kind of look around the image and kind of try to make adjustments to get it out of there. Sometimes you can't make it perfect, but most of the time you can make subtle adjustments and try to get that element not to lead the eye to the corner of your picture frame. So this last element here, where it's as you see it, this was a challenge for most students. I would say that you're approaching it in a pretty aggressive way, which is good. I wanted everybody to just kind of get right in there and try. Shooting abstraction, breaking the sort of predetermined like parameters of what a photograph is supposed to be, is not an easy thing to do, particularly if you are new to photography. You have this idea a photograph has to be sharp, it has to be of an object, it has to be using compositional things or whatever, but it does it. You can do all sorts of things with a photographic image that can be abstract, that break those norms, that are really equivalent to what painting can do and sculpture that sculpture can do. It's just light is all it is. And so you've taken and allowed it to be completely out of focus. You're working more with tone and color here. There's a bit of shape going on. And I think you're in a good place. It's a good start. It's difficult to know what to do with this, how to work it. But I think I appreciate that you went and just kind of embraced it and went all the way and just said, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and make them completely out of focus. What's working is the contrast. You've got lots of contrast going on in these. And then in this one, you've got lots of color contrast, variations in color, some light variations where it goes a little bit of a highlight in here and a darker in here. So I think that overall, this is a really good body that you've done here. There's some tweaks that you could do, like I pointed out, but as the first project, I think it's very well done. And I really hope to see more of your photographs along this line as we continue. All right, we'll see you in the studio. Bye now.